I'm not even listening to anything he's saying. I'm just
Just like,
I'm just standing there and I'm like, this man, the horror movie royalty,
yeah.
like royalty. He's allowing me, like, who the hell am I? And he's allowing me to have like this time with him.
Hello, my friends, and welcome back to Let's Get Cereal, the weekly show where I, your host, Alyssa Marino, eat cereal, talk about stuff, and sometimes talk to people. Joining me today is the head honcho of DNC Digital, my pal, D. How are you doing? And thank you so much for being on Let's Get Cereal.
No, thanks so much, Alyssa. This is a cool deal. I am ready to eat some cereal. Doing very well today, thank you, and I hope all is well for you, right?
All is well for me. Thank you so much. And speaking of cereal, per the namesake of the show, let me know what you got. What do you got going on cereal-wise today?
When I used to go out to eat as a kid, I never looked at what I was going to eat. I looked straight to the prices. So I would be like, you know what, I'm going to have this $6.99 or whatever the hell this is for $5. So I have stayed with the times, and I have a Hill Country Fair Berry Crunch. I think it is like a Captain Crunch or like a, oh, what was the other one that I thought of? I think it's like Crunch Berries.
It definitely looks like Captain Crunch Berries situation going on.
And it's all good. It's really good. I mean, it's a box for $2. You can't beat that with a stick.
I was actually going to ask if you could share the price with us. So, okay, good deals all around.
Definitely.
Well, I have my leftovers from my Dummy XO Sea Stars video, my Sea Stars cereal. So, without further ado, my friend, let's get cereal.
Cheers. Like just a good bowl of cereal and accompanied by some good company. It's awesome.
This is the way we do it. This is the good breakfast chat. And I like to share that it's a safe space. So like talk with your mouth full. It's totally fine. You can chew and speak at the same time.
I was wondering what the process was. Like, do I eat while she's speaking or do I wasn't sure, but now that it's all
it is all gravy. So for our breakfast buddies to get to know you a little bit more, I want to take a little trip down memory lane. And can you tell me a little bit more about how DNC Digital got its start?
So for all the children out there listening, there was a little thing called MySpace.
Oh.
And when MySpace was out, I just did like a blog. Anybody remember what blogs are? Like I used to do a blog.
Forgotten art.
I would just make fun of everything going on in the world. And then my buddy was streaming music on an internet site. And he goes, hey, come in and do 10 minutes. Just do your jokes. I was like, all right, cool. So I did the jokes, and then my 10 minutes started to get like popular. And then he decided to just run my own show under his umbrella. So the thing is, DNC, I abbreviated it because after time it started getting bigger and I started getting better guests. DNC stands for D's Nuts Comedy. Back then it was D's Nuts Comedy, and then I started to get bigger guests, and I'm like, they're not gonna say yes to being interviewed by D's Nuts Comedy. So now it's DNC Digital. So I had like this little internet radio show, and then I stopped that after a while, and then I got cool with somebody who runs the Comic Cons out here. So I just asked if I could just do some interviews, and then that just grew, that relationship grew, and then I just started to go to different cons and getting guests. I was able to interview a lot of cool people. But then when the pandemic happened, I had to slow it down. We had to do this like Zoom, and here we are.
Here we are. Well, and yes, speaking of these interviews that you've done that have taken place at different fan fests, conventions, and obviously wrestling shows, how did really that shift kind of happen for you from just enjoying your favorite bits of pop culture to really saying to yourself, like, hey, I have like good questions and I want to find a way to really talk to these people? Was there any kind of like part of you that was timid or doubtful, or were you like, nah, I'm good? Like, let me get out these people. Let me get in the same room.
What I wanted to do was definitely stand out. If I went to talk to somebody, who did I talk to? Well, one of the Power Rangers, Catherine Sullivan. And I didn't want to just ask her, like, what's it like being a Power Ranger? And then boom. No, like I did my research, and when I first started going to cons, like before I ever started this, I did feel like I wanted to have a conversation with this person, with the person, not just like fan out and like, there were I met Million Dollar Man, Ted DiBiase, and I remember asking him, how did you feel about your son coming into the business? And we spoke for a while, and then I asked him about Heenan, I asked him about Andre, and then I was like, man, all those questions that was a fun conversation. I wish I can have something to put it on and let people watch. So then I asked the buddy to do some camera work for me, and since then I've taken a lot of pride in my interviews, and I want to make sure that they enjoy it so that they can kind of remember me and look at me another day and be like, oh, that kid gave me a good interview that day. And sometimes people stay in touch, but it was just from regular conversations that I was like, I want to get back into the interview game, and I decided to do it.
Well, heck yeah. And actually on the DNC Digital YouTube channel, people can see your interviews with actors, musicians, athletes, sock puppets, as you said, Power Rangers, paranormal investigators, and of course, wrestlers. So how did you really go about finding and connecting with such a really varied range of subjects?
You gotta take what you can get in the beginning, and when I had like 40 subscribers, and then I had to hope that they did it, and if I were to stay in one genre of interviews, if I were to just do wrestling interviews, then I would obviously get the wrestling fans watching my stuff, but at the same time, I'm missing out on other interests that those same people might have. Everybody loves the Power Rangers. Everybody loves the Ninja Turtles. So those fans are coming in too. Not only do I have my wrestling fans that are loyal and and I'm using wrestling as just an example, but if I stayed in one niche, then I would have only had those listeners. I feel like to broaden my audience, and I'm very grateful for my audience, by the way, to broaden them and to get them to talk to other people, I got to interview different types of people. For example, again, wrestling fans aren't just wrestling fans. They like sports. They like music. They like DJs. Some of them may or may not like paranormal stuff. And I feel that touching on all these fields, I could bring all those people in. And just with loyalty, they would stay, even if it was in something that they particularly enjoyed a lot, just out of mere support from me.
And that's a really good way that you kind of can broach these different subjects and tie different things together. And speaking of one of the kind of other niches, you actually had the pleasure of speaking with one of my all-time favorite horror icons, Pinhead from the Hellraiser franchise. Yes.
My first interview.
That was your first one ever? Or like your first like DNC Digital like interview?
Yeah, fair. First one of the DNC Digital world.
Wow, and well, what an experience that has to be, because I also want to direct our friends at home to the horror movie tournament that you have on your channel.
Nice.
Are you a big horror movie fan, safe to say?
A very huge horror movie fan. As a kid, I was very scared of everything.
Okay.
But I became a huge horror movie fan. Those tournaments are so much fun because we do any topic. We've done one-hit wonder tournaments, horror movie tournaments, and I think we did a Christmas movie tournament. But back to Doug Bradley, that guy was, if you look at my face, by the way, it's on the DNC TV playlist. It's the very, very first interview, and I'm not even listening to anything he's saying. I'm just standing there, and I'm like, this man, horror movie royalty.
Yeah.
Like, royalty. He's allowing me, like, who the hell am I? And he's allowing me to have like this time with him and ask him. And then afterwards, that's what drove me. Afterwards, he was like, good questions. I was like, thank you. I was like, I wish you said that on camera. But he goes, no, with the remakes, with, not just being Pinhead and other, good job. I appreciate that. I'm like, thank you. And that's what I always like strive for. I identify as a father, as a partner, and as an interviewer. So if I get compliments on any of those three fields, I'm good. You don't have to, I don't care what else you say about me. But if you say like, it's a good interviewer, I'm like, oh, I love that. When you hit the like, oh, that's a good question, or man, you did your research. I'm like, oh God, I love those reactions. Those are so great. You as an interviewer, you also like, I got that same reaction when you looked up my stuff just now. Huh?
Oh my God, 100%. When we did our interview for DNC Digital, I was like, wow, you really deep dove into your subjects to really be very thorough in your questions.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we had discussed it too. It's something where we don't want to ask the same every question that everyone gets on every podcast. Like, let's make it different. Let's make it a conversation. So
yeah, definitely.
But I do have to ask kind of like a pretty stereotypical question as far as
sure.
horror is concerned. Top 3 horror movies.
Oh, top 3 horror movies.
Personally, okay. For you.
Number 1 is Halloween.
Classic.
The original Halloween. Mm-hmm. Only because, if I may, that was that's just a regular dude. There was no sci-fi about it. There was no supernatural stuff. It's just a dude in a mechanic suit and a mask. Tribute to William Shatner. But it was the music and the acting. Jamie Lee Curtis carried that, right? But it was the music and the acting and the fact that he's just walking. He's not even like running, and he's just such an imposing figure. And I believe that movie will outlive us all. Man, I've never been asked this question, but Halloween. I may get some hate for this, but I'm gonna say that only because it brought back a certain genre of horror. I want to say that The Conjuring deserves to be in top 3, only because it was slashers and it was a lot of gore, and then they took it back to the classic, like, this is like, let's just strip everything down and make it again about the music, the score, the acting, and the lighting. And they may have oversaturated that part of horror now, maybe, but that brought it back. And I want to say Frankenstein.
Classic.
Frankenstein, because Frankenstein and Dracula. Because Dracula had crazy lighting. And even it's not Boris Karloff. It is Boris Karloff. Mm-hmm. In the original Mummy, his acting was crazy. It was Bela Lugosi in Dracula, but Boris Karloff in Frankenstein, how the arc of the monster to the sympathizing figure happened, and he didn't say a word in that movie. And that, just the art of cinema for me, it really resonated with me. I'm like, this guy doesn't say a word in this movie. In the beginning, you're scared of him, and at the end, you feel terrible because the lynchers and the mobs, and they're burning the whole tower down. But yeah, I guess that might have to be my 3.
Now, I like that you took such a kind of analytic perspective to it of really breaking it all down. And was there a certain, because you said that you were kind of afraid of everything as a kid, was there a certain film that really kind of flicked the switch for you of like, okay, like now I'm really into this. Now I want to explore this more. Now I want to look at the lighting and listen to the soundtrack, and I really want to immerse myself.
Yeah, I watched Halloween as a teenager.
Okay.
And that's what it was. I was just, and then, back then I wanted to be an actor, and I was taking the, like you said, an analytical approach to things, and I was just like, man, I want to keep going. I want to see what else. So I love the old Universal horror movies, the Dracula, Wolfman, The Mummy, Frankenstein, Bride of Frankenstein. That was crazy too. But yeah, I want to say it was Halloween. When I was a teenager, I watched Halloween, and I was like, okay, this is cool. Because back then it was Hellraiser. I specifically remember running to my room when I was watching Hellraiser, and my stepfather, who I never had a good relationship with, would always try to drag me and make me watch it. And hey, what's life without childhood trauma, right? So
shapes us all, right? In some way.
Exactly. And then when I met Doug Bradley, I'm like, this is full circle, because you're a perfect gentleman, you're a class act, and I hated you as a kid.
And I think that really speaks to some incredible actors as well, people that you've seen on the screen in certain roles that you're like, man, I really hate that guy.
No, I really gravitate toward some actors that aren't even like the stars. There's a difference between a celebrity and an actor, or a movie star and an actor. Different different entirely. Some of my favorite actors are Paul Giamatti,
Mhm.
Stanley Tucci. Stanley Tucci in The Lovely Bones. I
Oh,
want to rip him apart. I want to physically hurt him and make sure he understands what he's doing. But that's how good he is.
exactly.
And then
Exactly.
he turns around in Easy A and he's doing a bunch of dad jokes. And in Devil Wears Prada, he is this bitchy like gay man, and like he's just such, you can't recognize him. And that's when you know an actor's an actor, when you can't recognize him. Was it Matt Damon in True Grit, Angelina Jolie in Changeling? That's when you
Oh,
can't recognize the actor. That's when I'm like, that's just good acting.
I think even some of my favorite actors are usually like character actors. Like, is it Peter Stormare who played the devil in Constantine? It was one of the first times I'd seen him,
Oh,
and then he
yes.
just pops up other places, and you're like, damn, there you are again, being all creepy
Mhm.
and wonderful. It's yeah, people can make huge impacts no matter what their role is. Now, one of the ways that we actually first connected was through wrestling. So, when it comes to your wrestling interviews, you've chatted with tons of stars, including many that have been featured in Mission Pro Wrestling.
That's right.
So, Rashay Chanel, Jasmine Allure, Masha Slamovich, Genocide, Roxy, La Mera Mera herself, Thunder Rosa, the Mission Pro champion, La Rosa Negra. And you and I, that's actually how we connected, was through Mission Pro, because you were sponsored for some of their events. So, what is it about Mission Pro Wrestling that made you want to hop in and get involved to support?
So it was last summer that I first interviewed at Thunder Rosa. And Mission Pro Wrestling was just in its infancy. It was just a rumble in the jungle, like just I hear something happening, but it's not out there yet. So I asked her about it, and it was just a couple months after the Speak Out movement in wrestling, where just some terrible stories of female wrestlers being treated really, badly in the locker rooms. Not to get too much into detail, but just some things that they shouldn't have experienced. I have a 12-year-old daughter, so it kind of resonated with me because I would hate for my daughter to be in a position in a company or just trying to chase a dream, have aspirations, and it takes one idiot to kind of kill all of that, and it sucks because I've spoken to somebody that experienced something like that and made them hate wrestling. Not only because it's wrestling, but it's something that somebody loves, and they just experience something that makes them hate that world because one experience in that world was tough. So back to Thunder Rosa, she told me she just wanted to have a safe space for women. We don't have to worry about that. It kind of resonated with me. Not only is it like, wow, it's Thunder Rosa, but it's a cool concept where everybody in that company is a woman. And not only to create that safe space, but it's to show that women can be the draw. Those matches are every damn match is crazy, and those shows are nuts. And what I like about the audience is that we're not here to cheer you just because you're women. We're here to cheer you because this is wrestling. They make them work for that "This is awesome" chant. They make them work for those chants and those standing ovations. And there have been some very well-deserved standing ovations. But Mission Pro Wrestling is huge. You're already seeing the effects of it in AEW and in WWE. But Mission Pro Wrestling is going to be huge. It already is, but what it will do for women in the future pro wrestling is definitely give them the right avenue and have the right support for them on their way to their goals.
It's absolutely an incredible kind of atmosphere there that we had actually discussed when we spoke. Yeah, definitely just they keep growing exponentially, these leaps and bounds, to the point that recently Mission Pro went on the road and hit up the Jacksonville Taco Festival, which every time I see it on social media just makes me feel hungry. So here's my transition. You ready? If you were stranded and you only had one meal to eat over and over again for all time, what would it be?
My mind and my heart says a nice ribeye, cooked medium, on top of a bed of white rice so that the juices go in to the rice. Some nice charred grilled onions on top. If not that, then probably some Peruvian food that I grew up with from my mom's kitchen. Or maybe my grandma's kitchen. Grandma outranks mom. So it might have to. Oh, but damn, my great grandmother. Quick story. My great grandmother, she lived. God bless her. She passed. She was like 97.
Wow.
But she was like, that was top lady of the family. Like, ain't nobody saying anything to Abuelita. That was Abuelita. Do not like. Like grandma already had that presence. Mm-hmm. Mom is very sweet. She's very sarcastic. So but I didn't spend a lot of time with my mom because it was just her. So she was working all the time. Mm-hmm. So I spent a lot of time with my grandmother. But when it came to my great grandmother, I went to Peru. I was 8 years old. She has no roof in her house. Her roof is all just a large sheet of bamboo.
Wow.
And they cut holes in the center of each room on top so that you have some sunlight during the day. Okay. And then they cover it up at night for the mosquitoes and stuff. But it's very, very poor area of Peru. But I loved it because it was like no running water, no electricity, but it made you appreciate everything. Like everything. They had like those kerosene lanterns. Anyway, to get to the food, the first night my great grandmother was like, "What do you want to eat?" I'm like, "Some rice and some fried chicken." Rice is the base, the foundation of all Peruvian food. So she has a bunch of animals in the back. She had chickens and ducks, 2 pigs and 1 turkey. And I just see her go to the back and I hear, and I was like, I was 8 years old. She just walks in with a dead chicken and I'm like, "What are you doing?" She's like, "Making you dinner. Sit down." And I'm like, "Okay." Like fresh chicken. Wow. So if I were to have one meal for the rest of my life, probably a Peruvian dish. We have arroz chaufa, which is like a Japanese infused. Japan and Peru fused in the culinary world when we had a president whose parents were Japanese. His parents were in Peru as tourists, and they had him, decided to stay. Long story short, he becomes president. So the relationship with Japan and Peru became very, very strong. So there was a lot of fusion in their cultures as far as food, and it's just amazing. So there's arroz chaufa, there's lomo saltado, there's arroz con pollo. So any one of those would probably be my last meal, or the steak. But if I can get grandma to make me something, I'd take that over.
I was gonna say, now does it have to be abuelita making it? Like, who has to be making that particular dish?
Abuelita, I wouldn't dare ask her like to make me anything. That's just, she was like this tall, and I'm sitting down.
Oh my God.
She was like this tall, and we were all terrified of that one. Grandma, she was tough on us, very, very tough on us. But if you were hungry, she made you food.
Fair enough. That usually seems to be the way. The tough love, but like, food is like the language of just adoration. Like, here you go.
I love it. Food is very. She taught me that food is your extension of your friendship and love to somebody else. If you feed somebody, you're saying, "I got you. I support you. I love you." And it's a whole deeper meaning for food for me. My grandma told me, she's like, "You're feeding somebody. You're helping them live throughout the day. Like you're gonna make it really good because you want to show them how much you love them." So yeah, it would have to be grandma.
That is very, very special. And thank you for sharing that memory. We do like to talk on Let's Get Real about kind of nostalgic things, and what an interesting memory to be able to share about that visit to Peru. That's incredible.
A huge culture shock because you come back and you're like, "Oh my God, running water. Hey, and it's hot." Or I can just flip a switch and the light comes on. I love going to Peru. I haven't gone there in so many years, but a huge family in Peru, a huge support system, a lot of love. And yeah, that first trip, I learned so much about myself.
And they, as you said, learning to appreciate all that you have and learning to kind of experience your own culture, but in a different way.
Yeah.
At the source.
Definitely, yeah.
Dee, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to chat today. And I want to make sure that all of our friends at home know exactly where to find you online. So I'm going to pop a link in to check out DNC Digital as well as your social media handles below. But before I let you go, do you have any messages for our breakfast buddies at home?
Hey, I want to thank everybody for watching. I can only hope that you guys come to my YouTube channel and just watch some of my interviews. All I ask is for It doesn't cost you anything. Just hit me with a like, subscribe if you like the interviews. I have some posters of people that I've interviewed. I have Manny Macias, who is a pop star, AJ Kirsch, who has done WWE 2K19 and Major League Wrestling. There was Miko Hughes, who was the kid from Pet Cemetery. You guys remember that
yeah.
guy? There's Thunder Rosa, Coco Beware, Anthony Michael Hall. I've been fortunate to talk to so many cool people, and I just want to share that with everybody. I can only hope that it keeps going farther from here. Just check me out at all my socials and my YouTube, and keep supporting Alyssa. She has an awesome show, and she also has some awesome content, talking to cool people, and she's just a lovely person. So I thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you so much, my friends. Until next time, continue to do your best to be your best, and we will see you later.